it's Sam here at Model Chili Scale Models, and in this video I'm going to be upgrading these 3 Star Trek diecast models. Now, in case you didn't already know, these are from a UK publication by a company called Eaglemoss, and each month you get a starship and a magazine explaining the history and production details. And it's been going for a few years now. It's called the Official Star Trek Starships Collection. I've been subscribed for just over a year, so I've got quite a few models, but nowhere near as many as has actually been released. But overall, I've been pretty impressed with the quality of each model. The proportions and the colours are usually pretty accurate. But if you collect these, then you'll know that some of them do have quite a few glaring errors. Sometimes they just miss details completely, or misalign paint and mess up certain mould lines and things like that. So some of the errors are quite easy to fix, and this has come about because on the back of the USS Defiant I was hand painting the frames around each warp engine, because originally they were just clear plastic, which was incorrect. And then I put a photo up on Instagram, and one of my followers by the name of BobMat343, he actually makes decals to make these a bit more accurate. Makes and sells them, so I'll put a link to his profile in the description. But anyway, he saw my photo and saw that I was making an upgrade, and he very kindly and generously offered to send me some decals to make another glaring error a bit more accurate, which is the registry on the side of each warp engine. So you can see there it's pointing towards the front, which is correct, but on this side it's pointing backwards. And so he sent me some replacement decals, so I can actually fix that one there, so it's pointing in the right direction, and then I can match it up with the other side there. And he's also provided the registries for the bottom of each engine, and also the blue grille details at the back, which has got this really nice pattern on them for the back of each engine. And he makes decals for all sorts of different ships in this collection, even some to replace names of each ship. So if you wanted to make this the USS Valiant or the USS Sao Paulo, he's got decals for that. And so yeah, so I was very surprised to open the envelope and actually find that he's sent me decals for even more ships. So the reason I've got these two here is because he sent decals for the USS Relativity from Star Trek Voyager, and the Antares from the original and animated TV series. And so these just replace, well, actually add a lot of details that the original models just didn't have. So that was a very nice surprise, and I'm very thankful for those. And so what I'm going to be doing first is I'll do the easy ones, which is just decal placement on these two. And then following BobMat343's instructions, I'll be removing the existing decals on the Defiant using a very special method, that he's got down. Alternatively, you could just paint over those decals with the matching hull colour, since that's just quite an easy job on the Defiant. That could also be an option. Right, so first of all I'll get the decals on these two done. Now, these being printed decals, basically the whole sheet is just one big decal, so they're not separated. So you have to actually cut as very close as you can to the actual decal that you want, just to minimise the carrier film over the edge. And I'm using a very fresh blade, so it's nice and sharp. So I'm just briefly dropping these in a bit of warm water. Just let them soak for a bit. And once I've applied these, I'll use a bit of microsol setting solution just to help the decals settle in. And I just apply that with a brush. Now, just before applying, I'm just making the area wet, just to make the decal move a bit easier once it's down. Alright, so I've finished applying the decals, and now I'm going to help them settle by applying some microsol, which is a decal setting solution. And that will help to just thin out the decals and help them cling to the surface a bit better. But I probably will only need one application because the decals aren't sitting over any gaps or bumps or anything, so they've already fit down quite nicely. And I'm actually quite surprised at how well these have gone down. They're very thin to start off with, so quite impressed with Bob Matt's printing techniques. And I'm not going to put a clear coat over these to seal them in, mainly just because I quite like the finish that these models already have, especially the relativity. It's got this really nice glitter effect going on, which I could risk losing if I was to spray this with a clear coat. And then on the interiors you've got these ones haven't quite dried yet, but you've got different reflective panels in the paintwork, and again that would risk being lost if I was to clear coat it, so I'm just going to leave the decals as is. And they do run the risk of peeling over time, but if that happens then I'll just apply more. And now for the Defiant, I've decided to paint over the existing registry, and for that I'm using Vallejo Model Air Pale Blue Grey, which is a pretty close match. It's not 100% accurate, but once the decal's gone over it, it shouldn't matter too much. I'm just going to apply a very thin layer and then build it up to minimise brush strokes. So I'll let that dry and then just keep adding layers over the top. So I've decided to apply a clear coat over the Defiant's decals, just because the Defiant is one of the hero ships of the franchise and also one of my favourites, so I'm going to give it a bit of special attention. And I'm just going to use Vallejo's satin varnish just to match the kind of semi-shiny finish that the Defiant has. And I'm just going to brush paint that on, just over the decals with a light thin coat. Hopefully it won't show up too much. And that'll give them just the extra layer of protection from accidental chipping and fading over time. Trying to keep it as neat as possible because there will be a bit of a reflective difference on this clear coat, so I don't want it to look too messy. Right, so now that the decals are fully dried, let's have a closer look at the detail. And I'm really happy with how these ones have gone down. They're really thin and flat, almost blend into the surface of the model. So that's really nice. USS Relativity NCV 474439G. That's a lot of USS Relativities from the far future. And the Antares. Oh, getting stuck in the stand there. Yeah, I'm really happy with how this looks now. It was really screaming out for a bit more detail on the front there. And that decal just adds so much to the overall look of the ship. This bizarre looking ship. I think this was first designed in the, well, first appeared in the animated series, and then this 3D model comes from the remastered Blu-ray original series, where they added in a 3D model. I didn't use all the decals for this that was supplied, just the registry of these two red boxes and the little red bits at the end. I think that's enough detail for me. But yeah, that registry is just looks brilliant on that model. Really adds to the overall look. And the USS Defiant. So the semi-gloss coat's gone down pretty nice. Doesn't really stand out. And so that just protects the decals from accidental chipping or peeling. And yes, so overall I'm really happy with how those have gone down. Added much needed detail to these otherwise pretty good models. And yeah, so again, a big thanks to Rob, aka BobMap343. And again, I'll put a link to his profile in the description, so be sure to go check those out if you want any more of these decals or have a look at some other of his brilliant works. And thanks for watching, so until next time, take care.